This is our video for Chapter 7, Lesson 6. The video is called Cross Sections, but we are going to spend the majority of our time talking about polyhedra and how to name them. So, polyhedra is our vocab word here. Polyhedra are three-dimensional solid figures. Polyhedra is the plural of the word polyhedron. I can show you how to spell that word if you're interested. It is Polyhedron. So polyhedron would be one, polyhedra is two or more. Okay, they're three-dimensional solid figures. Each of these are an example of polyhedra. You can probably think of some real-life examples where you may see something like this, like a shoebox or maybe a tissue box or cereal box. This looks like a pyramid. So these are pretty familiar to you. Polyhedra are named according to the shape of their base. Please put a star next to this note. This is probably the most important note in your lesson today. We will focus on looking at the base shape and using that name to help that shape to help us name the polyhedra. The two primary types of polyhedra are prisms and pyramids. You should have heard of both of these before. Pyramids, I think of the pyramids in Egypt, and prisms are typically box-shaped. Maybe you'd wrap a gift in something like this. So we're going to take some time comparing and contrasting prisms and pyramids. Here's an example of a prism. We'll name it later. Here's an example of a prism. We will name it later as well. So let's talk about what they have in common first. First, they're both 3D figures. Okay, prisms and pyramids are both 3D figures. They're solid. We can hold them in our hand. We have to draw them using perspective drawing. We can see them in real life. Next, they're both named by the base shape. Now, this, like I said, very important note here. Base does not mean bottom, and that's what a lot of students tend to think. Base does not mean bottom. In a prism, the bases are the two congruent shapes that are parallel from each other, and they are kind of connecting all the sides together. In pyramids, the base is across from that point that your pyramid will come to. So base does not necessarily mean bottom. Please make that note in your notes. Let's talk about prisms. Prisms have rectangular sides. These are also sometimes called lateral faces, but prisms have lots and lots of rectangles because it takes the two bases and connects them together. That's what all of our rectangles do. Okay. Another note about prisms is that they have two congruent bases. So if we look at this prism right here, they're all rectangles, so this is going to be called a rectangular prism. But we could choose two sides. I'll choose this side and this side. And we can say that's one base, and the other base sits across from it. They are congruent, and all those rectangles are connecting them. Okay? Since these two bases are rectangles, we would call this a rectangular prism. Let's talk about pyramids. Pyramids have triangular sides. So that's one big difference between prisms and pyramids, that prisms have rectangular sides, pyramids have triangular sides. You can see my triangles going around the sides there. Pyramids only have one base. The base, like I said earlier, is always across from the point. And that is actually our last note here, is that pyramids come to a point. So this pyramid here, we've got our triangular sides. If we look across from the point, here's our point. If we look across from it, here is our base shape. That is also a triangle. So we would call this a triangular pyramid. Rectangular prism, triangular pyramid. You have 3 practice problems that you have to name in your note packet. Please remember to first identify the shape as either a prism or a pyramid, and then find the base shape, and then use that word to help describe your prism or your pyramid. Once again, this was called a rectangular prism. This was called a triangular pyramid. If we want to go back here and take a look at our first couple examples, here's another triangular pyramid. another rectangular prism. This is a prism because it has rectangular sides, and the rectangular sides are connecting our two bases. Our two bases are shaped like pentagons. See the pentagon there? So that would be called a pentagonal prism. Pentagonal prism. Our last one here, this is clearly a pyramid because it comes to a point. It has triangular sides. The base is another pentagon, so we would call that a pentagonal pyramid. Okay, so go ahead, do your last couple practice problems, and ask any questions tomorrow if you have them.